Hey there, every week I send out an email toward the end of the week giving you a tip or a pointer on personal growth, psychology, communication, and of course, relationships. If you want to receive that, go to relationshipschool.com/newsletter and make sure you're on my list so that I can send you these emails. I think they're awesome, high quality content coming your way. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back, Ellen.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
It's like you're the host, you know? It's like I come to your studio and we do
Right.
this.
It's kind of how it's been, but you're kind of my co-host.
At times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about entrepreneurial mindset. Because I have some questions about it.
Great.
And
I love entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I'm a little wary of them.
Yeah, because you live with one.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I married a therapist and now I'm married to an entrepreneur, but I didn't get divorced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I secretly was an entrepreneur before being a therapist.
You were. There were signs and symptoms. And you'd started businesses. And
and
we just weren't thinking that way.
Yeah.
That, like that's what you were doing. But you were.
Yeah.
And because I have a few questions because I work with some entrepreneurial couples and I feel like everyone, I see a lot of marketing to entrepreneurs, like people who are like, I work with entrepreneurs and like they're a very specific niche and it's kind of like everyone wants to work with them or something or help them or support them. And like, what's going on with
such a mess.
What's going on with that? Let's start there. What's going on with that?
Well,
why do people want to focus in on coaching entrepreneurs or work? I don't know.
Let's define entrepreneur too.
Let's do that.
Entrepreneur is, I think, someone who solves a problem in the marketplace.
Okay.
It's kind of the simple definition. And there's solopreneurs, which is like a therapist or a coach. And that's kind of a term these days.
Isn't that just like
working for yourself?
Yeah.
It's just you.
Yeah.
You don't have employees or team. Yeah, it's like self-employed.
Okay.
But some self-employed coaches and therapists think they're entrepreneurs.
What's the difference?
In a way, they kind of are because they're starting their own business.
Okay.
They work for themselves. They don't want to work for an agency or for the man or whatever, which is cool. But I think the big difference between like a solopreneur and an entrepreneur is usually has a team and is running like a complex business and is trying to solve a problem in the marketplace.
Okay.
Or selling goods and services that the marketplace needs and wants, is asking for.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does income have anything to do with whether you're a solopreneur or entrepreneur? Like,
I don't think so.
Doesn't matter how much you're making.
I think people tend to think entrepreneurs as being wealthier.
Yeah.
Probably. But any entrepreneur knows they, usually start out broke and go into debt.
Yeah,
trying to do their business.
It can be many ups and downs and phases to that process.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we define that.
Yeah.
And so
this is again my definition. This is not Wikipedia or
it's
Google.
Your experience.
Yeah.
From being in that world for sure. And why do you think people want to coach them and work with them? And like, why do people want to focus just on that population? What's that about?
I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say because they maybe stereotypically have resources to invest in personal development. And entrepreneurs, in my experience, tend to be people, especially the entrepreneurs that are trying to do impact-based work. They're not just trying to make money. They're also trying to change the world or make an impact, change how something's done out in the world that they don't like.
Yeah.
And that person, I think, is kind of attractive because they have a growth mindset.
Okay.
Entrepreneurs, they get the beat down pretty hard in starting their companies and their startups and their businesses.
And running them over
it's
time.
Very difficult, in my experience, to start a business and run a business. A lot of entrepreneurs are not that business savvy. I won't say a lot. Let's say a portion of entrepreneurs are not that business savvy, but they are willing to learn.
Or they're good at like one part of running a business,
exactly. Or they have the idea.
This huge oversight that they end up doing.
Yeah, they're often very creative people who didn't do well in school, don't like to follow rules, don't like to work for other people. And I think there's something really compelling about that kind of person. That's maybe the first thing. And then the next thing would be that they're in pain.
Entrepreneurs.
And so they often are like looking for help.
Yeah.
Mentors, guides, coaches.
So a person who wants to help them is sort of like saying like, I understand your challenges, or I know how to help you, or I don't know.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs go to therapy, for example, and the therapist has zero experience in business.
True.
But they can help them. A good therapist can help them with their psychological blocks or their trauma history or something that might be sabotaging their success or getting in the way of running their business.
Yeah. Cool. So it's something about that entrepreneurs are typically outside the box thinkers, growth mindset. They are thinking and operating in their career in a more cutting edge, like game-changing kind of way.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
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 I mean, some entrepreneurs are just designing widgets,
but are really good at it. And you could say, well, the widget's not really helping the world. Yeah.
Or that vacuum cleaner that has never been designed.
Yeah.
So definitely a strong argument could be made that there's a lot of useless shit out there that entrepreneurs have designed or stuff that actually hurts the environment or the world. And I agree with that. That's true. Cars, guns, like whatever. There's things that have been designed, invented, and then sold that
have created
mess us up.
Some challenges for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm pouring my tea.
Yeah, I love it. I might have to have a sip of that.
You can share. Tea. So, okay. So now I want to go into this other question I have, because it seems like there's so much we could unpack here. I'm not sure how far we want to go, but something that I'm interested in right now about the entrepreneur is about how they fuel their work. Because typically they are working a lot. They are maybe wearing many hats. They are maybe dealing with high stakes financial decisions and situations, and like how much should I go into debt and how much should I invest, and kind of it's like fast paced, stressful. This isn't always, but some of what I see. Yeah. And then I see this entrepreneur in the midst of that that's like sympathetic nervous system all the time. Yeah.
The gas is on.
The gas is on.
They're burning the candle at both ends.
Burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. And struggle with how to like be in other aspects of their life and enjoy it without, be present in other aspects of their life. Relax. Take time to recharge. Like it seems like it's like work is always if it's not front and center, it's maybe it's always ever present. Yeah, that might be. So can you, and it seems like a road to burnout to me. Yeah. And people talk about that, and it can be hard on marriages, and it can be hard on relationships, and be hard on families. Can be hard on people's health. So I'm sort of watching and seeing and having questions. So
and you've worked with entrepreneurs over the years, so this is where some of this curiosity is coming from, because you know this in your own experience, and you live with one. Yeah. So you're like, dude, this is an intense lifestyle, and what's fueling all this? Yeah. What's the engine behind this? Yeah. Right? That's kind of your main question here.
Well, and I have my answer to that.
I know you do.
but I want it, because this is something I want to help some people with, and maybe know where I'm going with this. But
well, this is kind of vulnerable, but what do you think's fueling my engine, or has fueled my engine? Around kind of the constant push, drive, sympathetic, always thinking about work and stressed. And
I think for you, it's like you have, I'm going to say a few things. So there's like a desire to be the best, a desire to be recognized, and a desire to really have an impact and create change in an area that you just see people having a lot of pain around, that you had pain around, and you want to actually serve.
Yeah.
Like there's a deep desire to serve too. So I see it coming from a few places.
That's really kind. I thought you were going to say it's coming from your wounds, dude.
Oh. No, I think there's a high side for sure. I mean, I think that's interesting. Do you see that? Do you think it's coming from like where you're unworked, where you're wounded? If you
if you think about the relationship school, right? It comes from the void creates the value, as John says.
Right.
One of my mentors, and growing up, having some relationship carnage, disconnection, lack of attunement, can fuel this like desire to have children grow up in a different environment where they're really noticed and tracked and held in their experience as they develop. So that's the roots of the relationship school come from my own story.
Sure,
right?
For sure.
And then fueling that is this like kind of desire to figure myself out and solve the problem, so to speak. But I also grew up with an entrepreneurial father,
right?
Who was very driven, and I saw how hard he worked. So I got that download, and he pushed me very hard, especially in sports. He was always like, "You got to work hard," and yada yada yada. And again, there were major downsides to his style, and there was a lot of upsides.
Yeah,
I'm grateful for my dad for modeling. Actually, like just living in a hardworking way. Yeah. I was like, okay, I know how to do that because I watch my dad.
You do.
And he would go out there on Saturdays and pull weeds for hours in the yard. And that was, he just didn't, I have very few memories of him sitting down and just relaxing.
Yes.
He would sit down and sometimes at night and read the paper and watch the news like at the same time. But he was like accomplishing something.
Yeah.
Right? He's reading the news.
Or like catching up on sports. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Well, that's cool to hear. I mean, that all makes sense because I know you and live with you. And so what you create, we're talking about what you created though. Like the relationship school is something you created out of your life experience and what came to really be meaningful for you. I'm talking about that drive to like I can't take my foot off the gas.
Yeah. That's really vulnerable for me.
Okay, but
and other entrepreneurs.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that because that's a little bit different.
It's true.
And I think I actually would say that since you've been a full-time entrepreneur, that pattern has like gotten almost exacerbated. Like that it's harder for you to...
This is going to be like a therapy session.
Yeah,
by the way.
We might get into...
Well, and I also just want to kind of sidebar here that I hang out with entrepreneurs and I go to gatherings where there's hundreds of entrepreneurs. And we talk about this kind of thing.
So,
And the partners of entrepreneurs, they have to go through something also.
Yeah.
Being with someone who's so driven. And I do think the drive in what I notice, there's a lot of entrepreneurs I've worked with, for example, that the drive does come from a wound of like trying to prove oneself. I feel inadequate. So I've got to show the world or show other people how adequate I am or how okay I am. And the problem is, and then it's like, I'm going to make all this money and I'm going to do all this good in the world, but it's like never enough, right?
Yeah.
The shadow side here is that it's sort of like a hole that's never can be filled unless the entrepreneur does the inner work and starts to like feel okay being more than doing. And it's like, I don't need to, this next mountain I have to climb. I don't have to climb it. I'm lovable just as I am. Right. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that are actually doing that work because it's not fun to be stressed for years.
Yeah.
It takes a toll, like you said.
Yeah.
And there's this it's never good enough. I'm never good enough. it's never enough. I'm not enough. You know, and I go through phases of that. Absolutely. Myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is not a gendered thing. This is any driven person. It's not just men, you know, and it's not just Ennea type 3s. I'm an Enneagram 3, and it's not just 3s either.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And I think you talked about doing the inner work, and because it seems like there could be fear about doing the inner work because it might remove the fuel. Drive, the fuel that you're running on, this like unsustainable fuel, really.
Yeah.
But it works, and it's gotten the entrepreneur to a certain place, and then they're starting to realize like, oh God, this kind of sucks, or I don't feel good, or like, this isn't fun. Like you said, this isn't fun. Like this level of stress, like was exciting for a little while, and now it's just stress.
Yeah.
And they start to feel the wear and tear again, especially as they move into midlife.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh shit, but if I don't have this fuel, then what am I working? Like, how am I going to keep going or keep accomplishing the things I want to, or keep having this level of, you know, business that I want to have going? Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal because the fear of this person is if I pump the brakes and actually work through my trauma or I feel okay and I don't need to prove anything.
Right.
Well, then there goes the gasoline to the engine of this machine I'm building. And then it's going to fail and I'm going to lose out and not make money and not help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the predicament I see is that people, it's like, if I feel good about myself and lovable for who I am and that my being is enough, which I think it is.
Thank you.
Then, for you especially, because you're with me, like, it seems like that then they're like, well, then why would I work?
Yeah.
Why would I do this? How would I maintain the energy for this?
It's like a foreign language, right? To the entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't compute because they don't have the experience that, I'm actually more effective as a leader. I'm more effective as an entrepreneur. I'm allowing other people to support me and hold me, and I don't have to do everything. I mean, every entrepreneur goes through a journey as what the author of E-Myth, Michael something, I think is his name.
Yeah, his book's over there.
Yeah, wrote, you work on the business, not in the business. Like I got stuck in the business forever. Felt like years. And it does lead to burnout. But I was working with this guy, for example, I'm thinking of this guy who had the same thing with his anger. He was like, he had all this rage about his childhood and it was fueling his business. And he was asking me, well, if I actually clear the rage, I'm scared my business, I'm going to go out of business.
Yeah.
Like my business will go under. And I was like, no, dude, like I hear you, makes sense. You feel that way. And why you think that. And the more you integrate your rage and work with it and express it in a healthy, conscious way, et cetera, you work through the stuff that caused it when in your childhood, for example, now you can meet your business from a more integrated place and a less reactive, kind of habitual, neurotic push kind of way, you know, and guys or people that do that work do find that.
Well, and maybe you could tell me, like, from your experience, what that means and looks like. Like, what does leading and running a business or just working every day look and feel like from a more integrated / healed / a place where you've metabolized some of that rage or pain or not enough-ness?
Yeah. I gotta say, I come and go with this, right?
Yeah,
so I'm not on the summit here,
totally,
like having all this figured out. But in my experience with myself and others, it starts to look like a person who's more present, who's actually enjoying their life more, who's not resenting their business, who's not like perpetually unhappy because they keep trying so hard to like make more money or have a bigger impact. And it's just like never enough. Even though the evidence on the spreadsheet and in your bank account is, no, dude, there's
enough.
way
more than
enough. Plenty here. Like way a lot. And you have all these friends and you have a life and like, look at your family. But there's still this like chronic dissatisfaction. So that guy doesn't have that chip on his shoulder, or that person. And there's more fulfillment online. There's more enjoyment with partner, kids, friends. There's a sense of humor. There's a witness that can like laugh about how neurotic we get sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a playfulness that's present that wasn't before. There's I'm not taking myself so seriously. It's okay to take a week off. It's okay to delegate to someone who's doing 80% as good as you could do it, and it's still getting done. Because it's like, that's the other thing. It's like no one can ever do a good enough job around us. So a lot of us have to learn to delegate and let it be close.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do you want perfection and to be miserable?
Yeah.
Like no one can ever measure up, and everybody that you hire like leaves because they feel terrible about themselves. Or do you want people that feel great about themselves who are doing like, a good enough job, and you get to grow your business?
Yeah.
Anyway, there's layers here.
So many
that the entrepreneur can work through to get to a place of more life satisfaction, honestly. And more a feeling of I'm connected to myself, my body, my heart. I'm more available for relationships. It's kind of like that's another way to look at this is like a workaholic, right?
Yeah.
A workaholic is just a disconnected, not prioritizing relationships, and prioritizing work. And it's this like never ending cycle.
Yeah.
And their work is the same. It's like becoming more available to relationships. Because any addict we know is like, if they can, one of the first signs of an addiction is it starts to really damage your relationships.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yo. As you know, I've dedicated my life to helping people with their relationships, right? I want to solve this problem so that all of you can work through your differences and have fulfilling, amazing, badass partnerships and relationships, family, coworkers, friends, whoever. And I have trained a ton of relationship coaches, almost 100 certified relationship coaches, to help you specifically work through your relationship challenges. So I want to invite you to a special deal we're offering to the podcast listener, where you can get 50% off your first month of coaching with one of our amazing relationship coaches. Okay, if you're tired of therapy, it feels like that's going around in a circle, or you want to actually set goals and accomplish your relationship goals, hire a relationship coach. Okay, go to relationshipschool.com/get coaching now, and then use the coupon code FIRST50 to get the 50% deal off your first month of relationship coaching. Super psyched to have our amazing coaches serve you and help you get to the next level.
Can you be addicted to stress?
Yeah, I think I have that. I do. I think we've talked about this over the years. This, like our baseline is, a lot of us is like a sympathetic tone. It's always like, zzz, there's always like a little buzz. And so when you take that edge off through like a lot of meditation, for example, you start to feel very afraid and very uncomfortable because you're not feeling your baseline. You're like, where's my baseline? Hold on. This is like groundless.
Yeah.
Where's that feeling? And so
accomplishing.
So we'll unconsciously create drama and stress as a way to get back to our baseline. Like, I feel okay again.
Because I have a bunch of problems to solve.
I have a bunch of problems to solve. I'm a professional problem solver. I'm addicted to stress, so this feels good. It's kind of what I know. It's very familiar. And I'm doing it. Like I'm back in the zone. But and then you're like, no, you're not. You're back on the hamster wheel of your stress problem.
Yes. It's not the zone.
It's not. It's your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But it's not the learning zone of like you pushing into learning new ways of being.
And the reason for learning new ways of being would be
to have more fulfilling relationships.
Okay.
Because that's a high priority of mine.
Yeah.
To feel more connected to myself. to feel more connected to my creativity. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs start their businesses because they're so creative.
Right.
And then they get in the weeds of their business and they lose their creativity takes a hit, which is what has happened to me.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer, right? So
Yeah.
I think when we can learn how to work with that habitual stress, kind of compulsion, addiction, I think we can access our creativity more and be available to the things that we enjoy doing in life.
Yeah.
Relationships and family and sports and hobbies and nature.
And you enjoy work too.
I do.
When I notice that you enjoy work when you are connected to yourself, when you're not in that buzz of stress, when you've spent time with us. Like, I think now, I mean, you've always felt to me like that our family's like, like you come and be with us and you're present with us.
Yeah.
That hasn't been your challenge.
No.
But what were you going to say?
I've always said that, like, if I didn't have a wife and kids, I'd be pretty miserable.
Yeah.
Because I'd be a workaholic.
Yeah.
And I'd move in and out of short-term relationships and I'd be very difficult to be with. And you guys have kept me grounded and like here.
And slowed you down.
And slowed me down in a good way. Like I used to, there's like the pathology of like slowing down's bad.
Yeah.
You slow me down.
Yeah. No, you're like, you slow me down and it's really good.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I just want to appreciate that obviously not all entrepreneurs struggle with this. I think some have built in a lot more support for themselves.
Yeah.
I think those entrepreneurs do a lot better that have just a team they love that can really support their vision. And when they're not wearing too many hats or in constant problem solving mode, it's like when they get to be the creative generator and they just have people, if that's their role as the entrepreneur. I know there's other kinds, but if they're in their best role and then they have a team supporting them, which is it's hard to acquire that. I know. Those entrepreneurs, I think, can really feel like they're thriving and like doing what they love. And I'm sure there's always hard days and it's always a lot, probably. But I think that when you get into like someone who is driven from like not enough and fear of like trying out a different fuel source of like I was thinking of it as like working from inspiration instead of pressure. That's something I learned from Stan Tatkin as when I was training with him, just as a therapist, moving from inspiration, not pressure. And I think of that for anyone in a challenging job. Because therapy's challenging. I mean, there's a lot of challenging jobs. There's so many, but where we get to choose, how do I want to do this challenging role? Like, how do I want to be in my life in this seat?
Yeah.
I think it's so important to think about because especially if you have a family and kids and you're getting older, like it's just not a sustainable, it's not good for health. It's not good for relationships to be in this constant mode of stress and driving from anxiety and fear and not enoughness. But it's also gotten that person somewhere really that's like saved their life. Maybe it's saved their life to have that edge. Yeah. But that edge is like becoming the thing that's wearing them down now. Now it's like turned on them. Yeah. Right. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, we could probably do a case study of the world's most famous kind of celebrity entrepreneurs, and we probably see that they have a lot of relationship problems. Would be like one area where we could like either health problems or relationship problems. We could see that they're in pain or compromised there in some way because they're pushing so hard. It's like they're not really available. And some of them really like that and don't care. Sure. Because they have a low value on partnership or family or something, which is fine. But if they do, have a value on their health and their family or partnership or their relationships, like they do start to want to shift this. And what's so cool that I think from your friends and the entrepreneurs you've gotten to know, and I've gotten to know through you, there's been like when they apply that sort of creative growth mindset to other areas of their life.
Oh my gosh, look out.
Look out.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I know how to get shit done. I know how to work on things. I know how to apply myself. I'm not scared of challenge.
Yeah. That's
not what scares. Like, I'm scared of like not doing enough, but I'm not scared of working hard, you know? And so that's also something I've seen, is that when they put their attention on other areas that they want to improve or grow in, that's like all it takes in some ways, because they have such a desire to grow and evolve.
Yeah. Well, you've been asking me, this leads into questions I want to ask you. You've been asking me a lot of these questions, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, I'm genuinely interested.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the partner of these people.
Okay.
We can start with a question of like, what advice would you give partners of entrepreneurs or these driven people that are hard to, like, workaholics or just people that just are working all the time or very inspired or scared or whatever. And what have you seen in your practice? Like what starts to happen? Maybe we can start with what starts to happen to the partnership and the partner's experience. What's going on over there in your work? And maybe even it's come up here in our relationship.
Gosh, there's a lot I could say. I don't know if I have advice, but I do. One pattern I see is that everyone in the family, or like the partner, let's say, of the entrepreneur, everyone starts revolving around the entrepreneur's work.
Yeah.
And because money has such high value and status in our society, it's really easy for everyone to just be like, oh yeah, whoever's making the most money and kind of quote unquote working the hardest, bringing in the most resources, money, they sort of get the red carpet. Like that person, it's like, they're like an unhinged beast, you know, it's just like, yeah, whatever you got to do, or like, however this needs to look. And then I see that shift usually is that eventually that partner, if that's what's been going on, reaches a point where they're like, look, like your work cannot be the center of our lives. It's not like a long-term partnership or a close, meaningful partnership can't be based on, and you can't both be revolving around a job.
Yeah.
If it's something you're both meaningfully connected to, it can obviously be a source of inspiration and meaning, you know, work can be that, and gratitude. But there has to be, I think as partners, they have to be oriented to their relationship in a mutual way. And often if there's someone that driven and working that much and is that focused on really anything outside of the relationship, that I think you said earlier on, like that just starts to take a toll because primary partners don't like being deprioritized. No one does.
Yeah, it sucks.
To whatever it is, whether it's work or a spiritual practice, you know, someone's workout routine. Like, I mean, we live in Boulder, people train for like insane endurance events. It takes a lot of time. That can be a problem.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think it's about how much someone works or how hard or how important their work is. It's like, are they still able to have their partner feel like a priority?
Yeah.
Are they able to both make each other and the relationship the priority so that, I mean, because this goes back to what we were saying, like, so that, because that provides a lot of fuel to go out in the world and do your best, most awesome thing, or to just face the hard thing, you know, whatever it is you have to do. And so, I mean, when I'm working with people, it's a lot about getting refocused on their relationship, because the relationship takes a backseat to the work, to the entrepreneur's work.
Yeah. And too many couples have allowed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if there's kids involved, it seems like it gets worse, because then it's like, okay, you work, this person primarily deals with the children and the home. And like those traditional roles, like they just don't sit well with people this day and age. It's rare. Yeah. I haven't seen it, honestly, in my practice, where people are like, we're good with that. We're good with like those traditional divided roles. Like people want more overlap. Parents, both parents want to be more involved. Sometimes both parents want to have work outside the home or some more collaboration, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So most people aren't good with that, even though they default to that because it seems like, well, I don't know. I mean, that's how the money's getting made.
Yeah, and you're making all this money and I don't really, my job is, I guess I could quit and just raise the kids or...
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other conversation about kind of what the partner does in that scenario.
Yeah.
So there's so many choices around how to raise your family at that point, but...
Yeah, so if like over the years, my work, I've always said that sometimes when things get really hectic, stressed, money, whatever the thing is for me, you and I start to feel disconnected. When the kids were younger, they would act out more. And I always knew when they're like acting out, I'm like not as available. It was just a symptom of my lack of presence. And so that was feedback for me to like get in the game.
I want to just highlight that for a second.
Yeah.
Because I think most people do not know what you just said. So can we highlight that?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about how when you as a father would get preoccupied with your work and the stress around it. And even though it's like a mission you're connected to, it's like meaningful, feeds you and all that. But it's like, if you were getting preoccupied with that and struggling to be present as a father, like the kids would start behaving and acting in ways that were more difficult. It was more to manage. It was like, there was more challenge.
Yeah.
In the family system.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that. And I really am glad that we had that view that like whenever our kids still are like kind of acting out, like, I don't even know if everyone knows what that means, but when their behaviors are starting to get unruly or like
coming out sideways,
that makes sense, or you're like, wait, what is happening? Like, what is this weird thing that's emerged kind of out of nowhere? We always go back to what's happening with us, what's happening with me, what's happening with you. Like, how are we, like, how's it, like, cause we're holding all that. And so I just really appreciate that you had that lens and that cause I remember you could very quickly, like, that was like an outcome you were not willing to be okay with.
Yeah.
That was just, it was really immediate and good feedback, and it would we knew how to shift it.
Yeah. And you sometimes it wasn't the kids, it took you actually calling me forward, putting your hand on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a reactive way, but mostly it was very like kind and like, Henny, I'm worried about you. Like, I'm worried about us. Like, you seem like you're going a little too hard kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was helpful and when it was more helpful when you just share like how you were impacted. Like, it doesn't feel good over here, or I feel kind of like deprioritized.
Yeah.
That was usually it. It was like, I feel deprioritized and like this is all consuming over there. And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. 'Cause that's not the marriage I want to be in.
And that's not the kind of family you wanted to create too. No. Like you have been a very involved parent. So it was hard for you to sort out how to work that way, how to work as an entrepreneur, and because you didn't start doing that till, the kids were like 5 and 7.
Yeah. I didn't get really serious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was a little later in our kids' childhood, and it was, so we could see the difference too. I mean, that was what was cool in our relationship. And I think it's mostly been very positive what you've been up to, but there have been times where it's felt like, can we just drop everything and hide?
Oh man. I was like, can I just get a job? I just want a job where I get 5 o'clock, I'm done.
You would never.
No.
You wouldn't last a day. You wouldn't last a day.
Yeah.
So that's too bad, but
it's just not my path.
It's not too bad. I like what we're doing and how you're doing it.
Yeah.
But
thanks for hanging in there with me.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I think that I'm glad we're talking about this, because there's more I could say about the partner and what can happen in relationship, but I think primarily I was interested in just what gets in the way of entrepreneurs really being able to continue to work from an inspired place. And I know people, they can get beat down in their work because it's such a steep climb.
It's burly.
And there's just not a lot of support, and it requires a lot of money, and it's stressful. It's amazing. It's, privileged. It's a lot of things, but just trying to support them and spreading that growth mindset out into other areas. And I think a big takeaway for me is just that how to support them in doing work that will kind of relieve their nervous system of the stress button that's like being carried around, like the sympathetic arousal that they're always in. And I'm guessing that in order for them to address that, they just have to be in enough pain around that pattern, because it's really scary to just switch to trust that, wow, I could feel good about myself, feel like I have enough, I'm doing enough, and still create things and still have this full work life that they're envisioning.
Yeah, it takes pain. It takes a psychedelic journey. It takes something being hit over the head.
Hitting a wall.
Yeah, hitting a wall of some kind. And then I was talking to an entrepreneur recently who's used to do triathlons and sold his company for a lot of money and blah blah blah. And I was like, when did you get on the personal growth path? And he's like, start looking in the mirror and changing your life and your lifestyle and being more involved as a dad. And he was like, well, I did a psychedelic journey. And in that journey, I basically saw how much I hated myself.
Oh, man.
And I saw kind of where this was headed, and he was like, I don't want to, I'm done. I don't want to do that anymore.
Wow.
So sometimes we can be proactive. We don't have to hit we don't have to have our partner leave us or, get addicted to all kinds of whatever.
Other things.
And
yeah.
But if you're, maybe an action step as we wind down here is for you, if you're an entrepreneur, this is the question. And if you're not an entrepreneur, but you can relate in some way here, or you're partnered with someone, it's like just reflecting on what drives you.
Yeah.
What's your fuel source? And is your partnership fueling you? Is it your childhood wounds that are fueling you? Is it, and I think there's a way to be, for all of us, because we're all under so much stress now, to try to practice more integrated ways of being inside of whatever we do for work. And using our relationship as like a barometer of, chances are if we're doing well here, our relationship is good. That can be like a measure of success in some ways.
Yeah.
If our relationship isn't good, it could be that you're
something's off,
you're heavy, focused on work, etc. Yeah. Well, maybe we do a part 2 and we go into the partnership at some point a little more.
Yeah.
Because I still have more questions for the partner, but I'll pause here.
Yeah. I think that's a good start.
Thanks for your ongoing support and curiosity, honey.
Yes, always.
Yeah.